You don't really need that money, Claire. My mother's voice was calm, almost reasonable, as if she were stating a simple fact instead of crossing a line she had been approaching for years. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the unpaid bills spread across the counter. The coffee beside me had gone cold. I'm 40, Mom, I said quietly. I have my own expenses. My own life. She sighed, the familiar sound heavy with expectation rather than concern. Family helps family. And you've always been the strong one. That was how it always began. Not with a question but with an assumption. Not with appreciation but with entitlement. My name is Claire Whitman. I'm 40 years old. I work full-time, live modestly and manage my life carefully. And yet in my family's eyes I was the safety net. The one who would catch everyone else when they fell, no matter how often they jumped. At that moment, standing alone in my kitchen, I felt something shift. Not anger. Not yet. Just the quiet realization that being dependable had slowly turned into being expected to sacrifice. And no one had bothered to ask if I was still willing. I didn't become the dependable one overnight. There was no announcement, no agreement. It happened slowly in the spaces between emergencies and excuses. After my father passed away, I was the one who stayed. I helped my mother sort through paperwork she didn't understand and decisions she didn't want to make. My brother Mark said he couldn't handle the stress. My sister Elaine said she lived too far away. No one argued when I stepped in. I had a steady job. I paid my bills on time. I didn't ask for help. Those qualities I thought meant I was doing well. What I didn't realize was that they also made me convenient. When Mark needed help covering his rent after losing yet another job, my phone rang. When Elaine's car broke down, the solution somehow involved my credit card. When my mother's savings ran thin, it was assumed I would figure something out. No one said it out loud, but the message was clear. I was capable, which meant I was responsible. At first, I told myself it was temporary. Family goes through phases, I reasoned. People need time. Things will improve. But as the years passed, the requests didn't slow. They multiplied. And without realizing it, I stopped being a daughter and a sister. I became the plan. It always started the same way. Can you help just this once? I'll pay you back next month. This is the last time, I promise. The amounts were small enough to ignore at first. A utility bill. A grocery run. A short-term loan that quietly became permanent. I kept track in my head, not because I expected repayment, but because I needed to reassure myself that I wasn't imagining how often it was happening. Each favor slid seamlessly into the next. There was no pause, no moment where anyone asked if I was still comfortable helping. The assumption was that I would say yes. I usually did. When I hesitated even briefly, the tone changed. You know how hard this is for me. You wouldn't let family struggle, would you? I noticed something then. No one ever said thank you twice. Gratitude was brief. Expectation lingered. I began adjusting my own life around their needs. Postponing plans. Delaying repairs. Convincing myself that my stability mattered less than their emergencies. What I didn't realize was that by always stepping in, I was teaching them something dangerous. That I would never step away. The moment that changed everything didn't happen during a crisis. It happened over dinner. We were gathered at my mother's house on a quiet Sunday evening. The table was crowded with familiar dishes and familiar faces. Conversation drifted easily, the way it always did when no one was being asked to take responsibility. Halfway through the meal, my mother cleared her throat. Mark's landlord is raising the rent, she said, not looking at me. And Elaine's hours were cut again. I nodded politely, waiting for the question that never came. So, she continued, we'll need you to cover the difference for a while. The room went silent except for the sound of someone setting down a fork. No one asked if I could. No one even looked surprised. It had already been decided. I felt a tightness in my chest, the familiar pressure of being cornered. I wasn't aware we were discussing my finances tonight, I said carefully. Elaine laughed, a short, dismissive sound. Oh, don't be dramatic, Claire. You're fine. You always are. That was when I understood. To them, I wasn't a person with limits. I was a resource. And resources in their minds didn't get a say. The conversation moved on as if nothing unusual had happened. Plates were passed. Someone commented on the weather. My role in the evening had already been fulfilled. Inside, something was unraveling. I looked around the table and realized no one was uncomfortable. Not Mark, who avoided my eyes. Not Elaine, who scrolled through her phone. Not my mother, who had already counted on my agreement before the words left her mouth. I tried to speak once more. "I'm not sure I can do that right now," I said. My mother finally looked at me, then her expression tight. "Claire, don't make this difficult. You know they need help." That was the moment it became clear. My needs were irrelevant. My hesitation was an inconvenience. My boundaries were a problem to be managed. I excused myself early, claiming a headache. No one stopped me. No one followed. As I drove home, the streetlights blurred through my windshield, and for the first time in years I didn't feel guilty. I felt exhausted. Not from giving, but from being expected to give without question. That night I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I sat at my kitchen table long after the house had gone silent, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the steady rhythm of my own breathing. I replayed the dinner in my mind, not the words, but the ease with which the decision had been made for me. The confidence. The certainty that I would comply. That was when I understood something I had been avoiding for years. They weren't struggling because life was unfair. They were struggling because someone always stepped in. And that someone was me. Helping had stopped being kindness. It had become a system. One that worked very well, for everyone except me. I opened my banking app and looked at the numbers without flinching this time. The truth was uncomfortable, but it was also clarifying. I wasn't failing. I was being drained. For the first time, I asked myself a question I had never allowed before. What would happen if I stopped? The next call came 3 days later. It was Mark. I watched his name light up my phone and felt the familiar reflex rise in my chest. The urge to answer quickly, to solve whatever problem waited on the other end. This time I let it ring twice before picking up. "Hey," he said, casual, already comfortable. "I need a favor." I took a breath. "I can't," I said. There was a pause. Not concern. Surprise. "What do you mean you can't?" he asked, laughing lightly. "It's not even that much." "I mean, I'm not doing this anymore," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I've helped as much as I can." Silence stretched between us, heavy and unfamiliar. "So you're just done?" he said finally, irritation creeping in. "After everything?" "After everything." As if my help had been a debt I owed. "I'm done being expected," I said. "Not being asked. Expected." He hung up without saying goodbye. I set my phone down on the counter and waited for the guilt to hit. It didn't. What I felt instead was something quieter, something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. The reaction came quickly. Faster than I imagined. My mother called that evening. Her tone was tight, controlled. "Mark says you refused to help him." "I did," I said. There was a long pause, followed by disappointment wrapped in concern. "I don't understand what's gotten into you, Claire. This isn't like you." That was the phrase that echoed through every conversation that followed. "This isn't like you." Elaine texted instead of calling. "So I guess we know who really cares about family now." I stared at the message for a long time before putting my phone face down. No apology. No curiosity. Just accusation. What surprised me most wasn't the anger. It was how quickly my worth seemed to disappear once my usefulness did. Years of quiet support erased in a matter of days. They weren't upset because they were hurt. They were upset because the arrangement had changed. And for the first time I let them be upset. Weeks passed. Then months. The emergencies didn't disappear, but they stopped arriving at my door. Somehow bills still got paid. Rides were found. Problems were solved, just not by me. Family gatherings became quieter. Shorter. I was no longer consulted, no longer informed ahead of time. The silence was deliberate, meant to punish me. Instead it gave me space. I paid off my own debts. I slept better. I stopped flinching when my phone rang. For the first time in years, my money stayed where it belonged. With me. I didn't announce my boundaries. I didn't defend them. I simply lived within them. And slowly I realized something important. I hadn't abandoned my family. I had returned to myself. It happened quietly, without drama. My mother called one afternoon, weeks after the last tense conversation. Her voice was softer this time. Tired. "Mark found a second job," she said. "Elaine moved in with a roommate." I waited, sensing there was more. "We managed," she added. "It was hard, but we managed." There was no apology. No acknowledgement of what I had carried for years. But there was something new in her tone. Acceptance. For the first time, she didn't ask me for anything. When the call ended, I sat by the window and watched the late afternoon light settle over the street. I realized then that my family hadn't fallen apart without me holding everything together. They had adjusted. And so had I. I used to believe that love meant endurance. That being a good daughter, a good sister, meant absorbing discomfort so others wouldn't have to. I was wrong. What I learned at 40 is this. Helping is not love when it comes with entitlement. Support is not kindness when it's demanded. And family is not defined by how much you're willing to lose for their comfort. I didn't stop caring. I stopped sacrificing myself to prove it. Today my relationships are quieter. More distant. But they are honest. And the life I've built is finally mine. Stable, peaceful, and no longer shaped by someone else's expectations. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't giving more. It's knowing when to stop.